Hello, my beautiful friends. This is Gaurri A Kadam. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. The guest on my channel is someone who has been a client initially and now a very dear friend of mine. I have seen his journey into self-awareness and I have seen how he has evolved through different phases in his life. He is extremely talented as a designer and has a very creative approach. Please welcome Nishit Kamath. Nishit Kamath is a multidisciplinary designer specialized in transportation systems and design with a diverse background in industrial and product design. After acquiring over 12 years of work experience in various endeavors across Thailand, the US, and India, spanning commercial projects, spatial design, automotive, and aerospace design, Nishit has co-founded a design consultancy dedicated to 3D printing and rapid prototyping, and subsequently a design academy introducing us to short courses in various microfields of design. He is now channeling all his energy into teaching and the academy in order to provide a similar energy base and guidance for others who are ready to receive it. Please welcome Nishit Kamath. Hi, how are you?
I am well. How are you doing?
I am good. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of this episode. I know how busy you are and the fact that you've taken out the time to be here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
How do you like the atmosphere?
It's actually a pretty calming atmosphere, a lot of enthusiasm. There's something very mellow about it that I truly enjoy.
Well, congratulations on the launch of your design academy. I know that you have launched it during the lockdown phase and it all started initialized last year and then you just put it into execution immediately. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Leading up to my question, I can imagine how challenging it must have been for you. What inspired you to start this venture?
The academy was supposed to start much before lockdown. This is before we knew there was a lockdown. And we had prepped and started with a couple of schools to teach them as extra curriculum the concept of design thinking, etc. But when lockdown happened, it threw a lot of our plans afar. But one thing we knew that would go in to keep the kids occupied and something that would keep them learning would be teaching them something new. And one of the things is a very basic skill of sketching. And then introducing the concept of creativity or design thinking or critical thinking through the concept of sketching. So that's how we decided to launch. At first, I was hesitant a little bit. I didn't want to get started at that point. But my business partners, seeing my skill, then pushed me into starting the school, actually starting a class. And then from the class, the school came into fruition. I think it was just manifest destiny at that particular point. And up until that time, when I started with the first 5 students, it was pretty scary. But then I think after that, it seemed like just waking up every day and teaching.
Oh, yeah, I know, because we were in touch during the lockdown. I was in another part of the world, you were here. When you told me, I was so excited. I was like, wait, you are teaching? How did that happen?
I'm surprised myself. Teaching has taught me a lot about patience. It's taught me about working with the understanding of someone else's faculties and trying to build them up accordingly. I think it's also taught me about temperaments that I have to deal with. It's taught me about blocks that I may have to overcome when it comes to certain students. It's quite wholesome and even humbling at the same time. I would say about maybe 6 months through, I became a better designer as well as a better person by teaching other people, which was a surprise to me too. I've heard people say it, but this was the first time I was experiencing it.
Moving on to the next question. You have always spoken so highly about the subject of design. How did you fall in love with it?
I think I was a creative child right from the beginning. Sketching or playing or building stuff out of scrap, upcycling as it's called today, was something that was very intrinsic to my character. It's something that I used to do as a kid. It was just what I knew what to do. However, it was always looked upon as a hobby. There was no awareness. The only awareness at that time was engineering, medicine, commerce, and if you weren't good at the 3, then you get into arts, which was a terrible point of view in my opinion. However, in terms of design, the only things that people were aware of was interior and fashion design. There was no product design. I discovered product design on accident about maybe 12 days before my 12th standard exam. It was while watching Discovery Channel, and that's where I also saw what automotive design was for the first time in my life. And I was like, wow, so I can do design without having to use mathematical formulas? This is fantastic. I can sketch. So that's when I got introduced to design. And then as soon as I joined a design school in Bangkok called Raffles College of Design and Commerce, is where I got introduced to the values of design, how it's there to solve problems for people, and how it's there to design products or to create products or create services around a person's requirements, which is what I fell in love with. It's serving the needs of the person rather than putting the person in a situation and making him adapt to the needs instead.
So that was your journey, first finding that you have product design as a subject and then moving into design. After you started studying, after you started, dwelling more into the subject, how did that phase of your journey evolve?
A lot of the process that I learned in design was through the curriculums that were set in school. However, we were given the discretion to be able to learn from multiple different fields even beyond design, to understand and to create our own little mini curriculums so that we can form ourselves as individuals solving problems in our own very different ways, which was very unique to typical school of thought, where typically you have a certain curriculum set, you get in there and you have to follow it through to the T, and then once you finish it, you graduate, get your degree, yada yada, and get out. In our case, it was we could follow our own flow, and at the end of it come and present our flow and showcase it that this is the way I think, this is the way I process things, and this is how I see my world. It was quite fascinating because each one brought their own perspective and their own process and methodology. And when you would stand and compare, you'd realize that amongst all of them, there was at least one strain at the center, and that was, how do we make XYZ person who we are designing for make his or her world a better place? That is where I actually fell in love with the concept of design, because it was less about trying to make something cool. It was more about inspiring, motivating, or comforting someone who requires it.
Moving on to the next question. What was your process when you were assembling the faculty in your academy?
It was random at best, as honestly as I'd put it.
Okay.
When I started in towards the end of April during lockdown, and that too after much coaxing from my business partners, I started with 5 students. By mid-June, I had reached 55 students. And by August, I had 130 students.
Oh my God.
And teaching 130 students a week, especially when you have 5 kids a batch, it was a lot of hours spent. Like, I'd go to sleep and teaching, I'd wake up and start teaching. So it was just back to back. And at some point, I started noticing some of them wanted to learn how to sketch dresses, some of them wanted to learn how to sketch shoes, some of them wanted characters. And as a product designer, I could teach them how to do products and maybe a little bit about characters, but it would be best for them to learn from an expert who would provide those skills. So something that came to my mind at that particular point was that as a professional, I was teaching them the tricks of the trade that we use in design while breaking it down to their level of understanding. Okay. I had kids as young as 7 years old, even though our initial age is 8 years old. There was few times where I inculcated kids who were like 7, 6.5. I had to break down my thoughts and my processes to explain it to a 7-year-old, which is where I realized so many things about my process that requires work. From there is where the inspiration began, that I want to bring in people who are in the industry, who are working on a daily basis, to bring them in to teach the kids the tricks of the trade while teaching them the basics of their field of design that they are good at. That way, instead of it being by the book, it is by experience. Any student learns with somebody who has experience. There is a higher likelihood of them adapting to the trade or to the field of design they choose at a level where they are comfortable and confident. At the end of all of this is to gain confidence. It's to have confidence in what you're doing and have belief in yourself. And that's what we try to teach in the children, which is why I brought in people from the industry, because they believe in themselves. They believe in everything that they do. And that belief gets transponded through sketching into their lives. When I saw the work of kids coming back, in fact, like I mentioned to you earlier, that some of my students have gone and set up their own little ventures. That's when I realized, I was like, the confidence is kicking in. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, beautiful. Because I remember you told me it was a girl in her teens who started her own business, and I was like, what? I mean, that's so inspiring. The fact that you know, holding this platform for them and allowing them to just get nourished and nurtured and teaching them the right skill, giving them the right tools. And now it's your turf, it's your arena. Go ahead, do what you need to do. That's your trajectory. The fact that you are the one who has planted that seed, it's really beautiful. And kudos to you and your academy and your faculty, because I keep seeing the stories, I keep seeing your posts on Instagram, and it's so inspiring when you share the posts of kids doing their sketching, or the end product of a car design, which I saw recently of a very young child. I was like, wow. I mean, because you share the before and after, so I can see their journey as well, and it's really beautiful. And the fact that you're doing this, you're somehow a part of this, it's just really inspiring. Just to see your journey and your evolution, I feel very inspired.
Oh, believe me, the kids are teaching me a lot more than probably what I'm teaching them.
I'm sure.
Yeah. There's a whole other level that we don't seem to see on a daily basis, and that is to do with behaviors and patterns that are learned, be it at home or be it at school. And when it comes to design, you have to break them in order for you to be able to go beyond them to see what is there out there for you to create. It was surprising to me as to how early patterns were being created. Typically, I'd assume that, by 11, 12, 13, you'd have a few patterns that you'd make. But kids as young as 7 already had patterns set in certain ways. I think my goal at that particular point was for them to have a multifaceted view. They get a more wholesome approach to whatever they do in life. When I teach them, I don't teach them to be a designer. I teach them the essence, the basic skills of sketching, of thinking, which is required by every individual. The inspiration came from when my aunt, she'd leave for work, and she'd leave very early, and we had a cook who'd arrive, but the cook, she could not read or write English, or even Hindi for that matter. So my aunt had to convey to her that she needs to make rotis, for example, or a certain kind of a vegetable. How does she do that? So she used to draw and put images of, like, this is a roti, like this sort of a vegetable, and the cook would come and wake me up and be like, "Ye roti hai, or is this papad? What is this? Or is she asking me to clean the dish?" Somewhere along the way, I think that captured my need to develop this, because I realized that if there's one thing that a person who cannot read and write English understand, was a drawing. And drawing is, I think, it's like at least the earthly language of getting across a point you want to do as quick and easy as possible. And if everybody has it, I think the world would be an easily communicative place.
No, that's very cool. I like how you just shared that anecdote over there. It's very funny. I have witnessed your journey, and I have seen you evolve through the struggles, and I've seen you overcome those struggles. How has it made you more conscious in your approach?
Before, I would go through life pretty blind. I would probably put my blinkers on myself and just go through and get through, because I did not like the surroundings around me, or I was just hell-bent on getting a certain goal. After, at this particular point I look today, it allows me to stop myself, take a breath, just be in the situation, be in the scenario around me, accept it for what it is. Acceptance was a huge part in it. And then from there, break it down into small steps and then proceed. So it allowed me to look at even complex scenarios, and instead of getting intimidated by them, I now can break them down into step-by-step basis and then eventually conquer them. It's made me less anxious. It's made me less frustrated. It's made me more optimistic, and it's brought in my determination and my ability to persevere to the highest degree that I had never imagined before.
That's really all that matters. How can you now evolve and move forward with more acceptance, more surrender, and genuinely live life for what it is, than trying to create scenarios which honestly don't even exist. So we somehow get flustered, or we get exhausted, or just tired thinking about the future. And that happens not just with you, but so many of my clients, even with me, it's happened so many times. And now, like, it's a more conscious approach towards those kind of thinkings, those kind of thoughts that, you know what, how am I going to live this moment to the fullest? And how I'm going to be okay in this moment, in this conversation that I'm having with you. How is this going to honor me moving forward? So I think that's very cool. Thank you for sharing that experience.
You're most welcome. With regards to the concept of optimistic or positive thinking, often at times we are taught to say things like, oh, just be positive, just focus on it. However, when your mind or even your heart at this particular point is asking you to pay attention to your base, where you're at, and accept it for what it is. And often at times this positivity does become toxic at a certain point to yourself, because you haven't accepted your base for what it is. And acceptance is the hardest thing ever, because it fights against your egos, it fights against your methodologies, your mental models. It's a huge battle. It's a battle on all fronts. However, when you sit down and you accept it, that battle disappears in the span of a second. When you look around, you realize you have only yourself to answer to. And your mind that seemed like a storm is actually pretty calm. And when you get to that calm level, you realize from there, there's no going down. It's all the way up. Yeah. So you just start charting your path towards the future. That is the positivity or the optimism that I'd like to drive. The first thing is be aware and conscious of where you are. If it's not where you want to be, that's completely okay, but be aware of where you are, because knowing that, you know where you want to go. Then there's no stopping you from there on. All the obstacles will move right out of your way.
I think just adding to your point, even if we don't know what the next 10 steps are going to look like, as long as you are, like you said, you are aware in this moment and you are completely focused in this moment, the clarity will come as long as your intention and the area from where you're functioning, the heart center from where you're functioning is clear. The clarity will automatically come. But when you're just aware and when you're fully present in this moment, which is one of the biggest challenges which many people face. I also faced it at the extreme initial stages of mine before I stepped into the spiritual side of myself. It was very difficult for me to just be present in my moment. And that takes time. It takes time to overcome these challenges, but when you do reach that level that, okay, I'm just aware of this and I'm just going to live this moment to its fullest, and then I know what my trajectory is, but I don't have clarity as to how I'm going to reach that. It's all right. You somehow find peace in it, and you know that the steps are going to reveal itself as you keep moving forward.
It's something that my mom keeps reiterating to me, and she tells me is you know where you want to go, and you know where you are. What happens in between is out of your control. Sure. As long as you know where you want to go, there will be 100 paths that will take you there. Yes. Now, which path is left up to the universe and your actions accordingly. I believe in the 90-10 rule, where 10% of what happens to you is out of your control. 90% is what you do with it. Yeah. That gets you there.
True. And that also reminds me of the Akashic Records. In the Akashic Records, you have multiple channels to get to your end point. We can actually assess which is the best way, what has the more credibility, how is it going to serve me or the people around me. So what you're saying is absolutely true. I mean, your mom definitely has taught you the right thing. Moving on to the next question. What are the skills that you've developed after you started teaching design?
If I could put words to it, it would be that my level of assessment of understanding somebody's psychology when it comes to coming to me with an idea, if I could add a percentage to it, that improved by a good 90%. Typically before that, I had to go back and forth a couple of times. After this whole experience, within the first meeting itself and within that first hour, I'm able to deliver clarity and get clarity in return, which also improved the quality of my projects and improved the quality of communication between clients and myself. This also allowed me to go and grab larger projects. This is in terms of my design consultancy. Okay. We weren't even aware of them until we ran the academy. And like I mentioned to you, the academy was an outcome, a byproduct of starting with those 5 students. We thought it would be a lockdown gig. We'd run it through lockdown, and then post-lockdown it would probably simmer down, and then we'd get back into schools and teach schools. But instead, this spawned off into our own little academy, and that was best gift, I think, for ourselves, which we never imagined would happen. We thought something like this would happen maybe years from now. Have it happen in less than 7 months was a huge blessing.
Yeah.
So from there, we also learned the concept of speed. We learned the concept of seeing how quickly we can do something while still providing consistent quality. While our time is limited, sometimes our creativity also comes in spurts. And teaching has taught me to convert the spurts of creativity into more like a consistent flow. I've been trying to rack my brains around it to understand as to how did it move from a spurt to a constant flow. I don't have an answer to it just yet, but if anything, I think it taught me was to keep consistency in what I'm delivering, keep consistency in what I'm explaining, keep communication lines open, and most importantly, be ready to accept or be ready to be aware of what may come at you. I think a lot of my acceptance and healing happened when I was teaching versus before.
I mean, that is so profound when you say it like that, because usually it's the other way around. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. This time it's the other way around. The students are ready, the teacher has appeared. It's been like a flow that they have given you something and you've given them something. So it's like the ebb and flow. The infinity symbol just keeps coming back to me in this. And it's so beautiful to see that part of the trajectory and seeing it from your perspective, because I'm sure the kids, they're getting what they need and they are genuinely being nourished with the information, the knowledge, the wisdom that you and the other faculty are sharing. But the fact that you are also receiving something in return, I think that's beautiful. Because us as healers, people think that, oh, as healers, as a coach, you will just be healing the other person, but it's not true. I'm also receiving something at the end of it. And I am receiving the wisdom as I'm giving it to you, like as I'm passing it on to you. So I think that's very beautiful that it even works in this field.
It made me realize something. It's all about the energy, and the energy transforms. Now, energy is neither created nor destroyed. It transforms from one form to another. And some of the best teachers are those that also learn from their students. If you're going to go around it like you're delegating a certain task, but not willing to accept or receive what could probably help you grow or build or beautify that task, then that's going to remain all as it is, a task and instruction to complete something that could probably have maybe a little bit of effect. I may be taking a risk while saying this here. However, from what I've come to understand is ability to be able to receive feedback from the students, no matter how experienced they are versus how experienced I am, teaches me new facets about myself from a third-party perspective, versus if I did not take that, then I probably would not have been where I am today. I tell my students that while I'm teaching you, you're also teaching me things in return. I think some of the best teachers have evolved that way by trying to understand the students. I want them to learn at their best capabilities. I want them to reach their infinite levels. And in order for me to do that, I also need to understand their systems, their cultures, their backgrounds. And I need to assimilate all of that into my teaching, which is why I reduce the numbers of students per class from a typical class would have 15 to 20 students of sorts. I reduced it down to 5. It's more time taken on my behalf, but it leaves them with a skill that they discover a few months from then on, and that gives them a confidence that is so powerful that it helps them in every part of their life. Those students of mine who set up these little startups selling earthenware pots or earthenware cups, and some of the others are looking into setting up gaming systems, for example, games like indoor games, etc. I believe that they would not have had this level of confidence to push in. I'm sure they would have done something. I don't take credit for any of that. That is their doing. All I did was teach them what I did, and they took whatever they had to from there and they proceeded ahead. So I do not take credit for any of that. What I am inspired and I'm happy to know is that they realized within themselves that if they believe and truly believe in whatever they decide to do, however small, they will achieve it through 100% every single time.
And the fact that you're holding the space for them to grow and evolve, and for yourself to grow and evolve, I think that's very beautiful. Moving on to the next question. How and where do you find your inspiration as a designer?
If you would sit in my mind right now, if anybody would sit in my mind right now, it's an organized chaos. My mind is a universe of its own. As cheesy as it sounds, right? It's a universe of its own. The best way I can describe it, how I get my inspiration, is that I see a linear trajectory and I'm like a planet going through towards it. Suddenly I get pulled into multiple different extrapolations that bring me different ideas. It could be sometimes a sound. It could be when I'm walking, it could be a certain, I look at the sofa and it reminds me of a time when I was maybe back in France at this particular place buying these particular chocolates, for example. And there are a lot of memories tied to it. So it's very difficult for me to ascertain what is the way I get my inspiration, because inspiration's around me at all times. The tinkering of a bell perhaps will remind me of the temple that I go to in Bangkok when I visit my parents. And there I'll probably remember the carpet that had a particular design to it, and maybe that design then gets transcribed into my work. So every time I'm doing something, even if it's just washing dishes, be it even the way I change or change the way I clean the dishes, it has to do with probably the memory that is attached to some inanimate object or animate object or person or something that caught my attention in those 2 seconds, perhaps a good era ago.
That just takes me back to how I introduced you to the channel, because I said your journey into self-awareness has been so inspiring. This is self-awareness. When you're so aware in that moment, you're so conscious in that moment as to what you're doing, and then that brings back memories, and you're conscious about that, not lingering in those memories, but applying those memories or using those memories as inspiration and then moving forward from that. This is what I'm talking about. Like, this is why it's so inspiring to see that you're so conscious about it. That's exactly what I was talking about, that your journey has been super inspiring, and I've seen you evolve, I've seen you grow. The fact that you drive inspiration from any small little thing and then you apply it, like you don't hold on to it, you immediately apply it, immediately start putting it into process. Sometimes I see that you're creating molds, you're immediately executing it. There's nothing that you're doing to hold you back. So that's very inspiring. There are no more blocks in that area.
It's to get over the concept of having doubts. Everybody has mental doubts in their mind, but they don't live there. Like, especially the successful ones don't live there. This is something that I learned off one of the motivational videos that I would watch on YouTube before I start my work, or in the nights before I sleep. And what they said was, everybody has mental doubts, even the most successful ones, but they don't live there. It's what you take from it. You take your deep breath, internalize it, let it go through you, and then now that you've accepted it, resolve it. That's the only other option you have. You can live with it, but you can't stay where you are and go where you're trying to go. These two statements are what left me with that profound feeling that when I do have mental doubts, I'm not alone. I don't need to live there. I can take this, understand it, accept it, and then add it to my journey in a way that it helps me transform to corresponding futures.
Very beautiful. That's a beautiful gem of wisdom that you've just dropped. Thank you so much for that. What is your definition of success?
Wow, this is a multifaceted answer. To me, my definition of success is being even 1% better than where I was a moment ago. You can put attributes of wealth as being successful, or looking a certain way and being successful, or reaching or completing your PhD or your master's and being successful. But the concept of success for anybody, it depends on what they choose as a point that they can celebrate. To me, success is also mastering something that you truly enjoy and something that you feel will bring about a change or impart certain wisdom to your planet, or will help somebody around you. To me, success is also the ability to be able to love myself, to be able to live in my surroundings, and with whatever that's around me, do better, like create or enhance my experiences around me. So is there one ultimate line of success? I doubt it, and I don't live in that doubt space, but I say that there are multiple successes that come through. To me, success is a celebration of your change.
Wow. That's beautiful. I like how you put it that way. Success is a celebration of your change. You've changed my perspective now towards what success is. So that's very cool. Celebration of your change. I think that's very beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I had to re-say it constantly to just absorb what you just said. Like for me, that just became an aha moment. So thank you. Thank you for that. How do you strike work-life balance? What does that look like for you?
Being an entrepreneur, striking a work-life balance is very good in books.
True.
It's really good in books that you say that I have this time to this time, this time to this time. Now this works with people who have a meticulous routine. Take for example my father. He has his certain times that he needs to get things done. For me, today I sleep at 2, tomorrow I sleep at 10, the after I sleep at 5 in the morning, depending on work. Life as an entrepreneur requires me to deal with multiple different people, and each one comes with their own process. The balance I keep is I take certain variables and I take certain, at least basic parameters, and I tell myself I need at least an hour to myself and an extra hour to do something that I enjoy. And of course, your sleep time, right? And everything else you devote to work. Any extra hour you get to yourself is a bonus. There should be a minimum of an hour. So that 1 hour between 5:30 to 6:30, you'd find me on the terrace reading a book, or just staring into the sun, just enjoying the evening, or feeding the birds that are around, something like that. Something that just gives me joy. And 1 hour to myself is where I sit and introspect. Either I sit in a dark room or I just sit in a room and just stare blank. As long as I have those 2 hours in, I can achieve anything for the day. So the work-life balance in those regards, as long as the basic parameters are met, I'm good. There are some days where I get no work done. And at first it's to take me through a guilt trip. So used to the rat race growing up. You want to be able to do everything, and if you don't do that thing, you feel like you haven't done enough in life. It took me a good 3 to 4 years since I discovered this to break it down, to come to the point where it's okay. The sounds outside your house, people zooming back and forth, bikes zipping by, might give you the anxiety that everybody's at work except for yourself. You got to realize that they have their plan to chart out, their life to chart out. You have yours. It's not the same. If you were to zip, you would zip. If you were not to zip, you wouldn't zip. I do try to give myself a little bit of leeway. Like take for example the noise we just heard right now, right? This could have disrupted our interview.
True.
However, that is out of our control. So I believe that there are sounds like that are out of your control. You can vent about it, but then when you're done venting, you accept it as a part of your life and you continue it, because that has added some value to you that may not reflect now, but it reflects later. So that 1 hour that I keep to myself is to accept things like this. Otherwise, in Bombay, I would have lost my mind after a certain point.
No, I resonate. I resonate completely with what you've just said, especially about the construction noise and the traffic noise of Mumbai. I think that has been a huge acceptance for me, settling into my life here. But also going back to the point that when you have those 2 hours in the day for your personal introspection, that is your form of meditation. That is your form of giving yourself the time to just breathe in, breathe out, allow whatever has come up throughout the day and either accept it, or even there are times when you can't even accept it and just move on. But the fact that you're giving yourself that time. Many people, many entrepreneurs, many clients who come my way who are just beginning their business or are just coming up with the business plan, and they are like, it's so overwhelming. And that's when, my personal anecdotes come in place when I tell them like, I can't deal with, I can't control the outer circumstances like what's happening right now. I can't control that. But what I can control is that I keep going on with what I have to do, whatever is on my to-do list. If I can do at least 1 task or 2 tasks, there are days when you, like you said, do not feel productive at all. But then there are days when you're super productive and you finish the to-do list and you create another to-do list for the next day or the week ahead, and you get through that. So there are ups and downs, and the fact that you find your center and you find your place where you are anchored, your core, and then you allow yourself, be it the good days or the bad days, but you somehow allow yourself and give yourself grace for just getting through that day. If it's a bad day, just getting through that day and showing up the next day with hope, with ambition, and with optimism to move forward. So I think that's very beautiful.
I learned this from watching Sherlock Holmes. He has his sidekick, I forget his name, the inspector, who's with him at all times. He always has one statement he says, and he's like, it is what it is. And sometimes it is what it is. It's what you make of it, it's what you do with it. Some days are going to be bad. Some days are going to be great. You won't enjoy your greatness if you don't understand where your struggle was. I had a lot of struggle in the past decade. It was an internal struggle. And today when I look back and see the peace within myself, I'm very grateful for that. I don't think I would have ever paid attention to this peace nor celebrated it like I do today had I not had that struggle. I'm not saying that there are people who like they have no struggle, so that means they cannot enjoy. I'm not saying that at all. Each one has a different story. But what I've come to realize is it's allowed me to appreciate the smaller things in life.
Where do you see yourself 10 years down the line?
I don't have an answer to that question. That's a question somebody would ask me in a job interview. Even then I would say that I don't have an answer to that question.
Okay, why is that?
So I believe in the concept of man proposes, God laughs, which is basically when you make a plan, right? Okay. When you make a plan and you proceed ahead with it, there's a likelihood that plan could change.
True.
If you ask me what I want to be and who I want to be, I want to be able to be really successful in my endeavors in terms of automotive design, in terms of food and beverage, in drones. That is from the work aspect of things. I want to be someone who people reach out to resolve issues or problems that they face at that particular point. I want to be someone who inspires people to live their lives on a daily basis and build it up on a daily basis such that when they look at themselves 30 years from now, they look back and they're like, heck yeah, I had a wonderful life till date. Even in terms of, let's say, my personal growth, I want to see myself as overcoming as many obstacles and blocks that I have within myself as possible, letting go of all my inhibitions, being 100% okay with who I am, and being 100% in love with whatever I do, to the best of my ability.
Moving on to the next question. Has the fear of failure stopped you from accomplishing your dreams?
The fear of failure is inevitable. It's there within us. However, it's a learned fear. I read this while reading the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yes.
And in that, and even The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy, they talk about this. And it's more or less, there are two types of fear.
Yeah.
One is the fear that you come with when you're born, and the rest is all learned fear. The fear of failure is a learned fear. Only the fear of noises that startle you, that's something that's in it. That's like babies get startled when there's a sudden noise. They cry. But the baby doesn't sit there and say that, oh, if I fall off the cradle, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. The baby doesn't know. The baby is just there. So in the same aspect, the fear of failure is inevitable. You learn it at some point, so you have to unlearn it. And unlearning it is the hardest thing. The best way to unlearn it is to go in all out. Go into whatever you decide to do all out. Take your certain precautions, whatever precautions you need to. Listen to your subconscious. Listen to what your little voice inside your heart is telling you, and go by it, and you'll be fine. And if you fail, there's a reason why it happened. Failure is just another learning.
True.
Failure is just telling you that this way doesn't work. That doesn't mean the rest of it doesn't work. There's a whole world out there in which you can make things work. So to me, failure is actually a good sign. I've had some failures that almost cost me my business. That's why I am where I am today. I didn't stop there, which is why in the start of the interview some time back, I said, you can't be where you are and go where you're trying to go. You have your doubts, that's fine. Go ahead. You fail, that's okay. Take a minute, accept it, get up, dust yourself off, try again. Nothing is stopping you from trying again. Accept yourself.
I mean, it's your limiting beliefs, it's your limiting choices about how you want to move forward in life. And this is something that even I have faced, not only as a practitioner, but someone who, I have faced it in my journey of spirituality. It's only when you allow yourself to remove those blinders, like you said, remove those blinders and see the entire arena for what it is, or wherever you're stepping onto, or whatever your trajectory is, navigating through that and not letting any obstacle, any criticism, any negative feedback suck you down and then hit you in that rut, like make you wallow in that rut. It's fine, stay in that rut, allow yourself to cry, have a good cry, but then get back up and then keep moving forward. Keep showing up every single day in the best way possible for yourself. I think that is one of the biggest lessons that I have learned, that show up so that you are proud of yourself, not anyone else. It's your competition with yourself. Like, how can I be the best that I am, better than what I was yesterday?
I agree to that 100%.
And moving on to the last part of the question, the last question of the interview. What do you want your school's legacy to be, and what do you want your legacy to be?
In terms of my school's legacy, I just want the students who are coming through to be able to access the best parts within themselves and access their best capabilities and go on. That's when I know that I'm running a truly successful school, because I'm amplifying what they have brought in. I'm making them let go of things that don't work with them, and whatever that works with them, they take it and they proceed in creating truly beautiful lives for themselves. That's what I look at from my school. I don't need them to learn a certain technique. I will teach them certain techniques, but at the end of it, they take that technique and they make it their own. And that's the beauty of life. We all come with our ways, we all come with our processes, we all come with our experiences. Might as well grow it into something that is truly, originally, uniquely you. I want them to be uniquely, originally different as possible and as rooted as possible in themselves. And at the end of it, just being happy. That's the ultimate goal.
So that is the legacy you want your students to have?
Yes, within themselves. I want them to achieve whatever they put their minds out to. I strongly believe you put your mind to anything, even the most ridiculous thing, and you will bring it to life. When I was in the United States during 2012, 2013, and Elon Musk was trying the space rockets to land back onto the pads that were out in the sea, a lot of people from much more older institutions were having their go at it, having fun or making fun of it, saying that, why would you do what you do? But we reached the moon the same way. We could have said, oh, there's an atmosphere, it could burn, your people would die. Things are inevitable. We die while crossing the street. So that doesn't keep us from crossing the street. We still cross it. The same thing is what drives me and what I tell the students. That if you have to reach somewhere, the universe will find a way or will give you enough opportunity and ample space for you to reach there. But you have to believe in what you do. And that's why we have people believing in alternate universes, alternate spirituality, alternate dimensions. People doing things that otherwise would have been unheard of, solving situations otherwise unheard of. And it's all because of a belief. And the only person who can believe in yourself is you.
Is you, exactly. Yeah. Like, you are the only one who can believe in yourself and then see your potential. And even if you don't truly recognize your potential, but also the fact that you trust yourself and you trust yourself with the next couple of steps, I think that's a good place to start at.
Because at the end of it, you realize when it comes to towards the end of your current state of life, the only person you have to deal with is yourself.
Yeah.
Nobody else around you.
True.
Everybody else will look to you depending on how you see yourself. If you see yourself in a good light, people will see you in a good light.
Yeah. And then what is your legacy that you want to leave behind?
My legacy is to leave at least a 1% change on this planet. A 1% seems like a lot. I talk in percentages because...
You're all about the stats.
The stats. I'm not about the stats, actually. I want to leave people inspired. It's something that I had to do quite a bit on my own. Even motivation I had to do on my own. Why I started this academy was that when I was growing up, I didn't know there was design. I had absolutely no idea there was design. And even today, despite having the internet at our fingertips, a lot of people don't know what all is available out there, because they keep getting dragged to the mass fields of wherever larger number of groups will guide towards. It's what we are attracted to. We are attracted to the concept of being in a herd, being in a group. Often at times that means missing out on things that otherwise may not be in your purview. My goal is that I want people to be able to find and seek whatever it is they desire and take whatever they have from it and make it their best. That's the legacy I want to be. Today I'm designing chocolates and dessert molds for a number of top boutique restaurants as well as hotels here in India. And who would have thought that designing chocolate molds and dessert molds was actually a thing? It's something that may be about 30 to 40 years old, but it is still new. It probably started with somebody believing that they wanted to serve food a certain way. So they made it happen. So I think as humans, we can make anything happen.
We can make anything happen, and it's all up to us as to. For me, this might just be a cup of coffee, but for you this can be, for example, something that you can plant seeds in or hold your pens in. It's all about perspective. Like you can use the same thing in so many different ways. And I think we were having this conversation the other day in a cafe, and we were talking about the exact same thing, that everyone has a different perspective and every single person has a different approach towards how they want to move forward, and there's no such thing as right and wrong. It is whatever's right for you is right for you, and whatever's right for me is right for me. So that is very beautiful, and I think that's a beautiful legacy to leave behind, leaving inspiration. I think that's very beautiful. Thank you so much, Nish. Thank you so much for taking the time and for coming here and for being a part of this interview. I know that I was excited. I know that my crew was excited to shoot this interview and have this conversation with you. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm equally as excited to be here.
Thank you so much, guys, for watching today's episode. For more such conscious content, please don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the bell icon. And until next time, have a blessed week ahead.